Let's get something straight from the beginning. Women may forgive, they may move on, they may even act like they've forgotten you, but the truth is, women never truly forget a man who leaves a mark on their emotions. And here's the controversial part. Most men never realize how powerful they actually are in shaping that memory. You see, women aren't wired to remember just what you did. They remember how you made them feel. That's female psychology at its core. Now, let me shake you a little. Too many men waste time trying to impress women with money, cars, or flashy gestures. And yes, those things might get attention for a short while, but they fade. What women carry with them for years, sometimes for life, are the subtle but unforgettable actions of a man who understood her mind, her emotions, and her hidden desires. Think about this. Every woman has that one guy she'll never forget. Not always the richest, not always the most handsome, but he's the one who knew exactly how to touch her emotions, how to challenge her in just the right way, and how to stand firm when others crumbled. That's the man she remembers in the quiet of the night, no matter who she's with. And here's the bitter pill most men don't want to swallow. You don't become unforgettable by being perfect. You become unforgettable by being real, by knowing her psychology better than she even knows herself. Today, I'm going to break this down for you. 10 things that if you do them, she'll never erase you from her memory. Ever. 1. The man who says no without fear. Most men think the easiest way to win a woman's heart is by constantly saying yes. Yes to her requests. Yes to her demands. Yes, even when they don't want to. They believe this makes them look caring, generous, or romantic. But here's the truth. Women will never admit openly. The man who says yes all the time becomes forgettable. He blends into the crowd of men who bend just to keep a woman happy. What makes a man unforgettable is his ability to say no and stand by it. Why? Because no communicates power, boundaries, and self-respect. It tells her you're not afraid of losing her approval. And in female psychology, that's magnetic. Women might argue in the moment, but deep down they admire the man who refuses to be controlled by their whims. Saying no doesn't mean being rude or dismissive. It means you value yourself enough not to be walked over. Women remember the man who drew a line because most men are too afraid to do it. And let's be honest, if you can't say no to her, you can't lead her. If you can't lead her, she'll never fully respect you. This is where most men fail. They think rejection of her wishes equals rejection of her. Wrong. A firm no makes your yes more valuable. It separates you from the countless guys who are desperate for approval. She may test you, argue with you, or even act upset. But in her memory, you'll stand out as the man who had the backbone to stay true to himself. One example, imagine she asks you to cancel an important meeting just to take her shopping. A forgettable man says yes to keep her smiling. An unforgettable man says calmly, "No, I have priorities today. We'll do it another time." She may pout, but later she'll remember that you didn't fold. That memory will stick longer than any shopping trip. 2. The man who walks away. First, nothing shakes a woman more than a man who knows when to walk away. Most men cling to women, even when they're disrespected, ignored, or treated as an afterthought. They stay because they're scared. Scared of losing her, scared of being alone, scared that they won't find someone else. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The man who walks away first without begging or drama is the man she never forgets. Why? Because women are used to men chasing. They're used to men fighting for every scrap of attention. When a man walks away first, it flips her entire psychology upside down. Suddenly, he's not the one seeking her approval. She's forced to question why he didn't need it in the first place. That question lingers. That memory burns. Walking away isn't about arrogance or cruelty. It's about self-respect. It shows her that you refuse to stay where you're not valued. It tells her that your dignity matters more than her temporary validation. And here's the twist. When you walk away first, she often starts chasing. Because deep down, women don't respect the man who refuses to leave. No matter how badly she treats him, they respect the man who chooses himself. And years later, even if she forgets every man who begged and pleaded, she'll never forget the one who walked away with quiet strength. That's the man who haunts her thoughts because he was rare, different, unafraid. One example, picture this. She starts playing games, ignoring your calls for days, and acting as if you don't matter. A typical man keeps calling, texting, asking what's wrong, but the unforgettable man, he simply stops, walks away, and doesn't look back. She may not admit it, but long after she'll remember the man who didn't tolerate disrespect because he valued himself more than her games. 3. The man who doesn't compete for her attention. Most men fall into the same trap. They compete for a woman's attention as if it's a prize to be won. They text nonstop. They try to outshine other men. They fight for a spot in her busy schedule. But here's the reality. The moment you compete, you've already lowered your value in her eyes. Because a man who competes is silently admitting, you are above me, and I need to prove myself worthy. Now, think about this carefully. Have you ever noticed how the men women chase are never the ones chasing them back? That's not an accident. Women are wired to respect men who create their own world and invite her into it, not men who beg for her spotlight. When you're too focused on competing, you become one of many, forgettable, replaceable. The man who doesn't compete stands apart. He doesn't fight for her attention because he's already consumed with his own goals, his own mission, his own life. And ironically, that's what draws her in. It makes her curious. Why isn't he trying harder? Why doesn't he act desperate like the others? That question plants a seed in her mind, and that seed grows into attraction. Here's the truth that will sting for some men. If you have to fight for her attention, you've already lost her respect. Women never forget the man who made them work for his attention because he showed her that his time was valuable, his presence wasn't cheap, and his life didn't revolve around her. At the end of the day, attention is a currency. The man who spends it carelessly gets ignored. The man who invests it wisely becomes unforgettable. And when she looks back, the men who fought for her will blur together. But the one who never competed, that's the man who will stay in her memory. 4. The man who exposes her flaws calmly. Here's something most men don't want to hear. You are not doing a woman any favors by ignoring her flaws. Too many men stay silent when a woman is clearly wrong, disrespectful, or acting out of line just because they're afraid of losing her. That silence doesn't make you a good man. It makes you weak in her eyes. And women never forget weakness. What they do remember is the man who calmly, without anger or drama, points out her flaws and doesn't let her slide with bad behavior. Why? Because that man shows leadership. He shows that he values truth more than her temporary approval. He shows that he has a spine. Men need to wake up to this reality. If you're always tiptoeing around her feelings, you'll never be respected. Women test men constantly, not because they're evil, but because they want to see if you can hold your ground. If you fail every test, you may keep her body for a while, but you'll never hold her mind. And once her mind is gone, her memory of you will fade. Exposing her flaws calmly doesn't mean humiliating her. It doesn't mean shouting or belittling her. It simply means having the courage to call out what's wrong in a firm but respectful way. Women respect the man who can check them without losing his cool because he proves he's in control of himself. Here's the blunt truth. Men who let women get away with everything end up forgotten. They're just another guy who followed the rules of fear. But the man who made her stop, reflect, and adjust, that's the man who stays in her head long after, because deep down she knows he was different. He wasn't scared of her reaction. He was scared of losing himself. And that kind of man is unforgettable. 5. The man who controls his desire. One of the fastest ways men lose respect in a woman's eyes is by letting their desire control them. Too many men act like they can't think straight around a woman they find attractive. They chase, they beg, they fold, all because of lust. And here's the raw truth. The moment a woman senses that you can't control your desire, she knows she controls you. But the man who holds back, the man who doesn't throw himself at her feet just because he wants her physically, that's the man who becomes unforgettable. Why? Because he flips the script. Most women are used to men who can't say no, who melt the second she shows a little skin, who lose all composure just to get her. The man who doesn't, he stands out as rare. This is bigger than just attraction. It's about discipline. If you can't control yourself with a woman, you probably can't control yourself in other areas of life either. Women see that. They link your ability to restrain your desire with your ability to lead, to focus, and to handle pressure. And deep down, that's what they respect. Men need to wake up to this. Women remember The man who wasn't desperate to touch them because he forced them to work for his attention. He made them question, why doesn't he want me like everyone else? That question burns in her mind, and the longer it burns, the deeper the memory. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men are too easy, too available, too hungry. And when you're too easy, you're forgettable. But the man who desires her yet controls himself sends a louder message than words ever could. He shows strength. He shows self-mastery. And that in female psychology is unforgettable. 6. The man who makes her earn his respect. Here's where most men get it completely wrong. They give respect too easily. They meet a beautiful woman and instantly treat her like a queen, even though she hasn't done anything to deserve it. And while men think this makes them look good, in reality it does the opposite. Women don't value what comes too easily. Respect handed out for free loses its power. The man women never forget is the one who doesn't hand over his respect just because she's attractive. He makes her earn it through her behavior, her consistency, and the way she treats him. This flips her psychology upside down because she's used to men lowering themselves in the presence of beauty. When a man doesn't, it forces her to raise her game. Think about it. When a woman knows your respect has standards, she acts differently. She knows she can't just show up, look pretty, and get everything. She has to prove her loyalty, her character, her intentions. And deep down, that challenges her in a way she secretly craves. Women may deny it, but they admire the man who doesn't let them slide just because they're attractive. Men need to wake up to this. If you respect every woman equally, you're not a gentleman. You're just easy. And easy men get forgotten. But the man who sets his boundaries, who says, I don't care how beautiful you are, respect is earned, not given. That's the man who leaves a lasting impression. Here's the truth. Women respect men who respect themselves first. When she realizes your respect has value, she treasures it. And when she treasures it, she never forgets you. Because unlike every other man, you didn't fall at her feet. You made her rise to meet your standards. 7. The man who withholds validation. Let's be honest. Most men throw validation at women like it costs nothing. Compliments every minute, heart emojis on every picture, constant reminders of how perfect she is. And here's the harsh truth. When validation is cheap, it loses all its value. Women get flooded with praise from desperate men every single day. Do you think she remembers any of them? Of course not. The man she never forgets is the one who doesn't give his validation freely. The man who only speaks when it truly means something, because that rare validation hits different. It feels earned, not handed out. And that's the kind of validation that stays in her memory. Now, understand this clearly. Withholding validation doesn't mean being cold, disrespectful, or never appreciating her. It means you don't hand out approval like candy. You observe, you measure, and only when she truly deserves it through effort, loyalty, or genuine care do you let her know she's valued. That's when your words carry weight. Here's where men need a wake-up call. Women don't remember the 100 guys who told them they were beautiful online, but they do remember the one man who wasn't impressed so easily. The one who made them wonder, why doesn't he see me like everyone else does? That question eats at her, and the answer, your strength makes you unforgettable. Women are addicted to validation, but they're haunted by the men who didn't give it away because in their world, that kind of man is rare. He becomes a mental challenge. He becomes the standard they compare others to. At the end of the day, validation is powerful only when it's scarce. And the man who knows how to withhold it without bitterness, without arrogance, but with quiet strength, is the man who carves himself into her memory forever. 8. The man who breaks her routine. Here's something most men don't realize. Women get bored faster than they admit. They crave excitement, unpredictability, and emotional highs. Yet most men fall into the trap of becoming routine themselves. Predictable texts, predictable dates, predictable conversations, and predictable men are forgettable. The man women never forget is the one who breaks their routine. He doesn't fit neatly into her schedule. He doesn't act like every other guy she's ever dealt with. Instead, he disrupts her patterns in a way that leaves a mark. That disruption forces her to feel something different. And it's those feelings that stick. Think about it. If she knows exactly when you'll text, exactly where you'll take her, and exactly what you'll say, she has no reason to be excited. You've become another habit, another box checked off in her day. But if you break the routine, if you keep her guessing, challenge her patterns, and bring energy she didn't expect, suddenly you stand out. Men need to wake up here. Women don't crave nice as much as they crave impact. And impact comes from being different. It's not about being a clown or trying too hard. It's about refusing to be ordinary. The man who makes her pause, double think, or even roll her eyes in surprise. That's the man who won't leave her memory. Women forget the safe and predictable. But the one who broke her cycle, who challenged her habits, who made her feel something new. That's the one she replays in her head long after. Because he wasn't just another man in her life. He was the interruption she secretly wanted. In female psychology, routine is comfort, but disruption is desire. And the man who disrupts without chaos, who keeps her on edge in just the right way. That's the man she never forgets. 9. The man who challenges her fantasy of control. Here's a truth that will sting. Women often act like they want to be in control of the relationship, but deep down they don't truly respect the men they can control. And yet too many men hand over the steering wheel without a fight. They let her set all the terms, make all the decisions, and run the pace. Why? Because they're scared of upsetting her. But here's the problem. When you do this, you become forgettable. The man she never forgets is the one who challenges her illusion of control. Not with aggression, not with ego, but with firm leadership. He reminds her through his actions that respect and influence flow both ways. He doesn't allow himself to be manipulated by moods or empty threats. And that strength rattles her psychology in a way she can't ignore. Men need to wake up here. If you let a woman fully control you, she will eventually lose interest in you. Why? Because she doesn't want a follower. She wants a leader she can trust. She might argue. She might resist. But when you hold your ground with calm confidence, she secretly feels safer and more attracted. Too many men confuse being agreeable with being valuable. That's why they fade from memory. They think saying yes to everything equals love. It doesn't. It equals weakness. The unforgettable man is the one who isn't afraid to tell her, no, that won't work, or this is how we're doing it. She might roll her eyes or push back in the moment, but deep down she'll never forget the man who wasn't afraid to lead. Here's the bottom line. Women may fantasize about control, but they never remember the men they could control. They only remember the men who stood firm, who guided with strength, and who refused to trade self-respect for approval. That's the man who lingers in her mind long after he's gone. 10. The man who leaves a scar, not just a memory. Every woman has memories of men, some good, some bad, most forgettable. But every woman also has one man who left more than just a memory. He left a scar. And here's the truth. Scars are powerful because they don't fade. They change the way a woman sees herself, relationships, and even men in general. Most men settle for being a memory. They try to be nice, romantic, or safe, hoping she'll remember them fondly. But fond memories get replaced. They fade into the background as life moves on. The unforgettable man is the one who made such an impact, whether positive or painful, that she could never erase him completely. He left a scar on her psychology. Now, don't twist this. Leaving a scar doesn't mean being cruel, abusive, or reckless. It means being so real, so unapologetically yourself, and so firm in your values that your presence reshapes her. You challenged her. You held her accountable. You gave her highs she didn't expect and boundaries she didn't want but needed. That's the scar. That's the mark that no one else can replace. Here's where men need to wake up. Women don't lose sleep over the guys who showered them with compliments or tried to buy their affection. They lose sleep over the man who made them feel something deep, uncomfortable, and unforgettable. Sometimes it's the man who walked away when she thought she had him locked in. Sometimes it's the man who refused to let her game slide. Sometimes it's the man who showed her a level of discipline, strength, or leadership she'd never seen before. Men who play it safe end up erased. Men who make an impact, whether through their strength, their refusal to bend, or their ability to connect on a deeper level, are the ones women carry with them for life. She may move on, she may date others, she may even marry. But in quiet moments, when her mind drifts, she'll remember the scar, and that scar will always whisper your name. Here's the bottom line. If you want to be unforgettable, stop aiming to be liked. Aim to be respected. Aim to leave a mark, because a memory can fade, but a scar lasts forever. Conclusion. Let me leave you with a truth that most people will find uncomfortable, maybe even offensive. But it needs to be said. Women don't actually fall in love with good men. They fall in love with the men who impact them the deepest, even if that impact hurts. And that's why so many women still think about the guy who broke their heart while forgetting the guy who gave them everything. That's controversial, I know, but look around. It's real. A woman may marry the safe man, but she never forgets the man who shook her world. She may smile with the nice guy, but in quiet moments, her mind drifts to the one who left a scar. That's female psychology. And pretending otherwise is just lying to yourself. Now, men, here's your wake-up call. Stop wasting your time trying to be the man she likes. Be the man she remembers. Not through cruelty, not through games, but through strength, boundaries, and self-respect. Most men will play it safe. They'll fade from her memory. But if you have the courage to live by these principles, you'll live in her head rentree for the rest of her life. I know this will trigger a lot of reactions. Some will agree, some will fight it, and some will deny it completely. But I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share your experience. Whether you've been that unforgettable man or whether you've been forgotten, I'll be going through them, and I'll even reach out to some of you. Let's make this a real conversation, man-to man. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how many women you meet. It's about how many women can never forget you.